I'll never forget the day a modeling agency director forced me to strip naked in front of dozens of people during what was supposed to be a simple casting call. She had no idea I was married to the billionaire who would end up buying her entire agency by sunset. I was just wearing my regular clothes that day, trying to blend in. What happened next will change how you think about judging people forever. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Hey everyone, I'm Isabella, and today I'm sharing the most humiliating yet empowering experience that ever happened to me. So let me take you back to that life-changing day that taught me the most valuable lesson about never underestimating anyone. My name is Isabella Rodriguez, I'm 27 years old, and my life is absolutely nothing like what people assume when they discover I'm married to one of the most powerful men in the fashion industry. 3 years ago, I was just another struggling model in Los Angeles, living in a cramped studio apartment in North Hollywood that I shared with my rescue cat, Luna. I was working double shifts at a vintage clothing store in Melrose just to afford my monthly acting classes and headshots. Every morning, I'd wake up at 5 a.m. to work out in the tiny gym in my apartment building's basement, then spend my days either at auditions or folding clothes for customers who sometimes treated me like I was invisible. I had big dreams but a very small bank account. Student loans for my communications degree were crushing me financially, and some months I had to choose between buying groceries or paying for my car insurance. But I never gave up, because modeling and acting weren't just hobbies for me, they were my calling, my purpose, the thing that made me feel most alive. That's where I met Marcus at a coffee shop in West Hollywood, where I was working a weekend shift to make extra money. He came in every Saturday morning at exactly 8:30, always ordered a large oat milk latte with an extra shot and a everything bagel with avocado. What caught my attention wasn't his order though. It was how he treated everyone around him with genuine kindness and respect. For 2 months, Marcus and I had these wonderful conversations while I prepared his coffee. He'd ask about my week, remember details about auditions I mentioned, and always seemed genuinely interested in my dreams of making it in the entertainment industry. He never once mentioned what he did for work, never name-dropped connections, never tried to impress me with stories about expensive vacations or designer purchases. He was just this incredibly down-to-earth, funny, thoughtful man who made me laugh until my stomach hurt and listened to me talk about my goals like they were the most important things in the world. When he finally asked me to dinner after those 2 months of coffee shop conversations, I said yes, because he made me feel seen and valued as a person, not just as someone behind a counter. Our first few dates were simple and perfect. We went to food trucks, walked through Griffith Park, watched movies at the second-run theater that only charged $3 for tickets. Marcus seemed to genuinely enjoy these low-key adventures, and I loved that he never made me feel embarrassed about suggesting budget-friendly activities. It wasn't until our 4th date, when he picked me up in a car that probably cost more than most people make in 5 years, that I started to suspect Marcus might not be just another struggling creative trying to make it in Los Angeles. When I asked him directly what he did for work, his answer nearly made me drop my coffee. Marcus Rodriguez wasn't just some guy I'd met at a coffee shop. He was the Marcus Rodriguez, founder and CEO of Stellar Entertainment Group, the talent management and modeling agency empire worth over $4 billion. His company represented some of the biggest names in fashion, film, and television. His face had been on the cover of Forbes magazine 3 times. I'll be honest, finding out about Marcus's wealth and influence was overwhelming at first. I worried that he might expect me to change who I was, to suddenly start acting like the sophisticated socialites I assumed he usually dated. But Marcus made it crystal clear that he'd fallen for the real me, the girl who wore thrift store finds and got excited about $2 tacos from the food truck down the street. Our relationship moved forward naturally after that revelation, but it wasn't because of his money or connections. Marcus loved that I had my own dreams and ambitions, that I wasn't interested in being taken care of or rescued. And I loved that despite his incredible success and wealth, he remained the same kind, humble, funny person I'd first met behind that coffee counter. When we got married 14 months later, it was an intimate ceremony on a beach in Malibu with just our immediate families and closest friends. No paparazzi, no society photographers, no elaborate designer gown that would end up in magazines. Just 2 people who genuinely loved each other, promising to support each other's dreams and ambitions. But adjusting to life as the wife of a billionaire entertainment mogul has been the most challenging aspect of this entire journey. Marcus constantly tells me to stay true to myself, to dress in whatever makes me feel comfortable and confident, to never change my authentic personality for anyone's approval or expectations. That sounds simple in theory, but when you're constantly surrounded by people wearing designer everything and carrying handbags that cost more than cars, it's incredibly difficult not to feel like you don't belong in their world. I still prefer my vintage jeans and comfortable sneakers, my thrift store blazers, and my grandmother's costume jewelry. Marcus says my refusal to let his world change my authentic style is one of the things he loves most about me. But sometimes that authenticity comes with consequences I never anticipated or prepared for. About 8 months ago, Marcus started receiving concerning reports about one of his most prestigious modeling agencies, Platinum Dreams Agency in Beverly Hills. Multiple aspiring models were filing complaints about the director's behavior, saying she was cruel, demanding inappropriate things from girls during casting calls, and treating people differently based on their appearance and perceived social status. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Marcus was incredibly busy at the time, in the middle of negotiating a major acquisition deal that required him to fly between New York, London, and Tokyo almost weekly. He trusted his management team to handle most day-to-day operations, but these specific complaints were serious enough that they needed personal investigation from someone he could trust completely. That's when I volunteered to help by going undercover to one of their open casting calls. I thought it would be straightforward, just observe how the staff conducted themselves during auditions, and report back with my observations. I had absolutely no idea that I was about to experience firsthand exactly what those young models had been complaining about. The morning I decided to attend the casting call, I got dressed exactly like I always do. I put on my favorite pair of vintage Levi's that I'd found at a thrift store in Silver Lake, perfectly broken in and incredibly comfortable. I paired them with a soft cream-colored sweater that my aunt had given me for my birthday, nothing fancy, but it made me feel confident. I added my trusty denim jacket, the one I'd been wearing since college that had sentimental value, and slipped on my most comfortable white canvas sneakers that had definitely seen better days but were perfect for a long day of waiting around at auditions. Instead of carrying one of the expensive designer handbags Marcus had bought me, I grabbed my favorite brown leather crossbody bag that I'd been using for years. Looking in the mirror that morning, I saw exactly what I wanted to see, a regular 27-year-old aspiring model heading to an audition. I looked approachable, authentic, and completely unremarkable in the best possible way. I had no idea that this deliberately ordinary outfit would soon make me the target of the most degrading experience of my entire life. Platinum Dreams Agency is located in a gleaming glass building in the heart of Beverly Hills, surrounded by palm trees and luxury cars. The lobby is all marble and crystal, designed to intimidate and impress anyone who walks through those doors. As I entered the building and took the elevator to the 15th floor, I should have felt excited about being in one of Marcus's properties. Instead, I immediately felt out of place and unwelcome. The moment I walked into the agency's waiting area, I could feel eyes on me, judging my appearance and finding it severely lacking. Other aspiring models, dressed in their most expensive outfits with perfect makeup and professionally styled hair, looked at me with barely concealed disdain. The receptionist, a tall brunette with extensions that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget, glanced up from her computer with obvious annoyance when I approached her desk. She looked me up and down with such obvious disgust that I felt my cheeks start to burn with embarrassment. "Are you here for the cleaning service interview?" she asked, her voice dripping with condescension. "Because that's on the 3rd floor, not here." Quote. I took a deep breath and forced myself to stay calm and polite despite her rudeness. "Actually, I'm here for the modeling casting call," I said, keeping my voice steady and professional. "I saw the posting online about open auditions today." The receptionist's laugh was sharp and cruel, loud enough that several other people in the waiting area turned to stare at our interaction. "Modeling casting call," she repeated mockingly, as if I'd just told her I was there to audition for astronaut training. "Honey, do you have any idea where you are right now? This is Platinum Dreams Agency. We represent supermodels, not whatever this is." She gestured dismissively at my outfit with obvious disgust. "I understand this is a prestigious agency," I replied quietly, fighting to maintain my composure. "But the posting said it was an open call for new talent, so I thought I'd give it a try." The receptionist rolled her eyes dramatically and picked up her phone. "Victoria," she said into the receiver, "we have a situation out here. Some girl showed up thinking she can model for us." "Yeah, I know, right? She's wearing like thrift store clothes and sneakers. Should I call security?" My stomach dropped as I realized she was talking to someone about having me removed from the building before I'd even had a chance to audition. "Please," I said, trying to keep the desperation out of my voice. "I just want a chance to try out. If I'm not what you're looking for, that's fine. But I'd appreciate the opportunity to at least meet with someone." The receptionist held up one finger to silence me while she continued her phone conversation, speaking about me like I wasn't standing right there. "No, she's definitely not our usual type. Yeah, I can see why you'd want to make an example." "Okay, I'll send her back." She hung up the phone and looked at me with a smile that made my blood run cold. "Good news," she said with fake enthusiasm. "Victoria Blackstone, our director, wants to meet with you personally. Follow me." As we walked through the agency's corridors, past walls covered with photographs of successful models and actors, I felt a growing sense of unease. The other aspiring models we passed in the hallways were all impeccably dressed, looking like they'd stepped off magazine covers. They stared at me with confusion and amusement, whispering to each other behind manicured hands. I was starting to understand that I might have walked into something much worse than I'd anticipated. Victoria Blackstone's office was enormous and intimidating, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Beverly Hills and walls covered with photos of celebrities she'd discovered and represented. She was sitting behind a massive glass desk, talking on her phone when we entered, and didn't acknowledge my presence for several minutes. Victoria looked exactly like what Central Casting would order if they needed someone to play a ruthless Hollywood power player. She was probably in her early 40s, with platinum blonde hair styled in a perfect bob, wearing a white blazer that probably cost more than my rent. Her makeup was flawless, her jewelry was clearly expensive, and everything about her screamed wealth and authority. When she finally hung up her phone and looked at me, her expression was a mixture of amusement and disgust. "So," she said, leaning back in her leather chair, "you're the girl who thinks she can model for my agency." Her voice was smooth and controlled, but there was an underlying cruelty that made me instinctively want to step backward. "I'm here for the open casting call," I said, trying to project more confidence than I felt. "I know I might not look like your typical model, but I'd love the chance to show you what I can do." Victoria's laugh was even more cutting than the receptionist's had been. "What you can do?" she repeated, standing up and walking around her desk to get a closer look at me. "And what exactly do you think you can do?" Because from where I'm standing, I see someone who clearly doesn't understand what this industry requires. She circled me slowly, like a predator sizing up its prey. "You have potential bone structure," she said clinically, "but everything else about you screams amateur hour. The clothes, the hair, the complete lack of style or sophistication. Do you have any idea how much money we invest in our talent? How much our clients pay for perfection?" I stood still while she examined me, trying not to let her words affect my confidence. "I'm willing to learn," I said quietly. "I know I have a lot to improve, but I'm hardworking and dedicated. I just need someone to give me a chance." Victoria stopped circling and stood directly in front of me, her eyes narrowing with what looked like malicious pleasure. "A chance," she said slowly. "You want a chance? Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to give you exactly the chance you're asking for. But first, you need to prove that you're serious about this industry, that you're willing to do whatever it takes to succeed." The way she said those words made every instinct I had scream danger, but I was curious to see how far she would take this power trip. "What do you need me to do?" I asked, though I was already starting to regret the question. Victoria's smile was the most frightening thing I'd ever seen. "Strip," she said casually, as if she'd asked me to hand her a pen. "Right here, right now. If you want to be a model, you need to be comfortable with your body, comfortable being seen, So let's see what we're working with. My brain struggled to process what she'd just asked me to do. I'm sorry, what? I managed to say, hoping I'd misunderstood. Victoria's expression didn't change. You heard me perfectly. Take off your clothes. All of them. If you're not comfortable being naked in front of industry professionals, then you're definitely not cut out for modeling. This is how we separate the serious candidates from the wannabes. The request was so outrageous, so far beyond any reasonable audition requirement, that I almost couldn't believe it was happening. I don't think that's necessary, I said, backing toward the door. Maybe I should come back another time when I'm more prepared. Victoria moved to block my path to the exit. Oh no, you don't get to waste my time and then run away when things get real. You came here asking for a chance, begging for an opportunity. Well, this is your opportunity. Either prove you're serious about this career, or admit you're just another delusional girl with unrealistic dreams. The situation had escalated so quickly that I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare. You're absolutely right, I said, surprising myself with how calm my voice sounded. If I want to make it in this industry, I need to be completely confident and professional. Victoria's eyes lit up with satisfaction, thinking she had successfully intimidated me into compliance. But what she didn't know was that I had already decided to see exactly how far this woman would go with her abuse of power. I needed to understand the full extent of what those young models had been experiencing. I started by slowly removing my denim jacket, folding it carefully and placing it on the chair next to Victoria's desk. That's more like it, Victoria said, her voice filled with cruel pleasure. See how much better you look when you start taking direction? This is what real modeling is about. Following instructions without question, doing whatever the client or agency asks of you. She pressed a button on her desk, and within seconds, the receptionist appeared in the doorway. Cancel my next 3 appointments, Victoria told her, and call everyone from the casting session into my office. Tell them we have a special demonstration they need to witness. My heart started racing as I realized she was planning to humiliate me in front of multiple people, but I forced myself to continue with my plan. I pulled my cream sweater over my head, revealing the simple black bra I was wearing underneath. Victoria circled me again, making comments about my posture and muscle tone like I was livestock being evaluated at an auction. The way she spoke about my body, reducing me to marketable parts and perceived flaws, was dehumanizing in a way I'd never experienced before. Arms up, she commanded. Models need to be comfortable being examined from every angle. Clients will inspect you like this before every shoot, every runway show. If you can't handle it now, you'll never make it in this business. I raised my arms above my head, feeling more exposed and vulnerable with each passing second. Within minutes, her office began filling with people. The receptionist returned with 3 other agency employees, 2 male photographers who looked like they were enjoying the show far too much, and 4 of the aspiring models from the waiting room who seemed confused but too intimidated to leave. Victoria was clearly reveling in having an audience for my humiliation. Ladies and gentlemen, Victoria announced to the room like she was hosting some kind of twisted entertainment event. This is what happens when someone with no understanding of our industry tries to waste our time. This girl actually thought she could walk in here wearing thrift store clothes and become a model. The room filled with uncomfortable laughter and whispered comments. Continue. Victoria ordered me. Show everyone what you're really made of. I unbuttoned my vintage jeans and stepped out of them, standing there in just my underwear while a room full of strangers stared at me with a mixture of amusement and pity. The photographers were taking pictures, claiming they needed to document the audition process. The other aspiring models looked terrified, probably realizing that this could happen to any of them if they didn't meet Victoria's impossible standards. The male employees were making comments about my body that made my skin crawl. This is exactly why we have standards. Victoria continued her cruel commentary. Look at this. No muscle definition, no sophistication, no understanding of how to present herself professionally. This is what happens when people don't respect the craft of modeling. She walked around me again, pointing out perceived flaws like she was giving a lecture. But something strange was happening inside me during this horrific experience. Instead of feeling completely broken down, I was getting angry. Not just angry about what was happening to me, but furious about what this woman was doing to vulnerable young people who came to her looking for opportunities to pursue their dreams. I thought about all the aspiring models who had probably stood in this exact spot. being degraded and humiliated by someone who held their futures in her hands. I thought about the girls who had probably gone through with whatever Victoria demanded because they felt they had no other choice. The injustice of it all was overwhelming. "All the way," Victoria said, gesturing for me to remove my remaining clothes. "If you want to be a model, you need to prove you can handle anything this industry throws at you. No modesty, no hesitation, no shame. Strip completely or get out of my office and never come back to any agency in this city." The room went completely silent as everyone waited to see what I would do. This was the moment of truth, the point where Victoria's abuse of power reached its absolute peak. I could feel the eyes of everyone in the room on me, some pitying, some excited, some clearly uncomfortable but too afraid to speak up. That's when I made my decision. Instead of complying with her final demand, I reached into my crossbody bag and pulled out my phone. My hands weren't shaking, which surprised me given the intensity of the situation. I was focused now, determined to end this nightmare not just for myself but for every person Victoria had ever treated this way. "What are you doing?" Victoria demanded, her voice sharp with sudden concern. "Put that phone away immediately. No recording devices are allowed during auditions." But I was already dialing the number I needed, the one that would change everything about this situation in the next few minutes. "Hi, Marcus," I said when my husband answered, my voice perfectly steady despite everything that had just happened. "I'm at the Platinum Dreams Agency in Beverly Hills. I need you here immediately, and bring security with you. There's been a serious incident that requires your personal attention." The mention of Marcus's name seemed to register with Victoria, but she was clearly trying to convince herself it was just a coincidence. Victoria's face, which had been flushed with power and excitement just moments before, was starting to show the first signs of uncertainty. "Martinez," she repeated slowly like she was trying to place where she'd heard the name before. "That's not. You can't possibly be." But she couldn't quite bring herself to finish the thought. "This is Isabella Rodriguez Martinez," I said into my phone, making my second call to Marcus's head of security. "I need immediate assistance at the Platinum Dreams Agency. There's been an assault and harassment incident that needs to be documented and addressed." The use of my full married name seemed to finally penetrate Victoria's consciousness. The color drained from her face as the implications of what I'd just said began to sink in. "Rodriguez Martinez," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "You can't be... There's no way you're actually..." But she still couldn't quite accept the reality of the situation. I put my sweater back on while maintaining eye contact with Victoria, watching as her expression shifted from confusion to recognition to absolute terror. The room full of people who had been watching my humiliation with amusement just minutes before were now looking around nervously, sensing that the power dynamic was about to shift dramatically. Everyone in this room just witnessed a clear case of sexual harassment and abuse of power. I announced calmly, "Multiple people recorded what happened here, and I want everyone to understand that this behavior is not acceptable in any professional environment, especially not in my husband's company." Victoria stumbled backward, nearly falling into her desk chair. "Your husband's company," she repeated weakly. "But that would mean, you're saying Marcus Rodriguez is..." She couldn't finish the sentence because the truth was too overwhelming to process. "The founder and CEO of Stellar Entertainment Group," I confirmed. "The company that owns this agency, this building, and employs every single person in this room." The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Several people gasped audibly, others pulled out their phones to frantically delete whatever photos or videos they'd taken, and the photographers who had been so eager to document my humiliation suddenly looked like they wanted to disappear. Victoria collapsed into her chair completely, her face going from pale to green as she realized the magnitude of her mistake. "I didn't know," she stammered. "I had no idea who you were. I thought... I mean, you were dressed like..." She gestured helplessly at my outfit, as if my choice of clothing somehow justified her behavior. "Exactly," I said firmly. "You treated me this way because you thought I was powerless. Because you believed I was just another desperate young woman with no connections or resources to fight back. That's precisely the problem. And that's exactly why what happened here today was so wrong. It took Marcus exactly 18 minutes to arrive at the agency, and I knew because I was watching the clock on my phone counting down the seconds until my husband walked through Victoria's office door. When he did arrive, accompanied by 3 members of his security team and his head of legal affairs, the atmosphere in the room changed instantly. Marcus Rodriguez commands respect wherever he goes, not through intimidation or arrogance but through quiet confidence and undeniable presence. When he entered that office and saw me standing there, still partially undressed, surrounded by a room full of people who had just witnessed my public humiliation, I could see the fury building in his eyes. "What exactly happened here?" Marcus asked, his voice dangerously quiet as he took in the scene. His security team was already positioning themselves strategically around the room, and his lawyer was pulling out recording equipment to document everything that was about to unfold. "Your wife," Victoria began, but Marcus cut her off with a single raised hand. "I want to hear from Isabella first," he said, never taking his eyes off Victoria's terrified face. "Tell me exactly what this woman put you through." So I told him everything, from the moment I'd walked into the agency to Victoria's demand that I strip completely naked in front of a room full of strangers. With each detail I shared, Victoria seemed to shrink further into her chair. The other people in the room were trying to edge toward the exits, but Marcus's security team made it clear that no one would be leaving until this situation was fully resolved. "You forced my wife to undress in front of multiple people," Marcus said to Victoria, his voice still terrifyingly calm. "You sexually harassed her, humiliated her, and created a hostile work environment that violates not only company policy but state and federal laws." Victoria was sobbing now, mascara running down her face in black streams. "Please," she begged. "I'm sorry. I didn't know who she was. I made a terrible mistake. Please don't destroy my career. I have bills. I have a mortgage. I have employees who depend on this agency." For a moment, I felt a flicker of sympathy for her, but then I remembered the cruelty in her voice when she was humiliating me in front of all those people. "You're right about one thing," I said calmly. "You didn't know who I was. But that's exactly why your behavior was so inexcusable. You treated me that way because you thought you could get away with it. Because you believed I was just another vulnerable young woman with no power to stop you." Marcus was pacing now, his hands clenched into fists as he processed everything I'd told him. "How many other women have you done this to?" he demanded. "How many aspiring models have you humiliated and degraded in this office?" Victoria's sobs got louder, but she didn't answer the question. "We're going to find out," Marcus's lawyer said, pulling out a tablet and beginning to take notes. "We're conducting a full investigation into this agency's practices, and we're reviewing every complaint that's been filed against Ms. Blackstone and her staff." That's when Victoria really started to panic. "Wait," she gasped between sobs. "You can't investigate everything. There are confidentiality agreements, non-disclosure contracts. The models signed papers saying they wouldn't talk about their audition experiences." The admission that there were legal documents specifically designed to silence her victims made Marcus even angrier. "Those contracts are void," his lawyer said matter-of-factly. "Any agreement signed under duress or to cover up illegal activity is unenforceable. We'll be contacting every model who worked with this agency and offering them full legal support if they want to come forward with their experiences." I watched as Victoria's entire world collapsed around her in the span of a few minutes. The power she had wielded so cruelly was being stripped away systematically, and she was finally experiencing the helplessness that she had inflicted on so many others. "You're fired," Marcus told her simply. "Effective immediately. Security will escort you out of the building, and you're banned from all Stellar Entertainment Group properties. Your final paycheck will be mailed to you, minus any damages we determine you owe to the models you've harmed." But that wasn't the end of it. Marcus made another phone call while we were still standing in Victoria's office, speaking to someone about purchasing agreements and asset transfers. When he hung up, he turned to address the room full of people who had witnessed my humiliation. "As of right now," Marcus announced, "Platinum Dreams Agency no longer exists as an independent entity. Stellar Entertainment Group is acquiring all assets, all contracts, and all employees. Everyone in this room will be receiving new employment contracts with significantly improved harassment policies and protection protocols." The transformation was immediate and complete. Victoria's empire, built on cruelty and exploitation, was dismantled in less than an hour. The woman who had forced me to strip in front of strangers, who had humiliated countless young models, no longer had any power over anyone. As Marcus's security team escorted Victoria out of the building, she turned back one last time to look at me. "I hope you're satisfied," she said bitterly. "You've destroyed everything I worked to build." But I felt no satisfaction in her downfall, only relief that she would never be able to hurt anyone else the way she had hurt me. The ripple effects of that day were far-reaching and profound. Within weeks, 17 other models came forward with their own stories about Victoria's abusive behavior. Some had been forced into inappropriate situations during auditions, others had been blacklisted from agencies for refusing her demands, and many had given up their modeling dreams entirely because of the trauma she had inflicted. Marcus made sure that every single one of those women received personal apologies, compensation for their experiences, and opportunities to rebuild their careers with agencies that actually respected their dignity and humanity. The entire modeling industry in Los Angeles took notice of what had happened at Platinum Dreams, and other agencies began implementing better protection policies for their talent. But the most important change was the one that happened inside me. That horrible experience taught me that I never again want to stand by silently when someone is being mistreated. It showed me that having power means nothing if you don't use it to protect people who are vulnerable. 6 months later, I received an unexpected message through the agency's new management. It was from Victoria, who had moved to a small town in Oregon and was working as a retail manager at a clothing store. She wanted to apologize for what she had done to me and to thank me for not completely destroying her life when I had the power to do so. Her message said that losing everything had forced her to confront how cruel she had become, and that she was working with a therapist to understand why she had felt the need to hurt other people to feel powerful herself. She was volunteering at a women's shelter, trying to make amends for the harm she had caused. I was glad to hear that she was working to become a better person, but I also knew that the trauma she had inflicted on so many young women couldn't be undone with apologies and good intentions. The modeling industry, like many industries that deal with people's dreams and aspirations, attracts predators who exploit the vulnerable. That experience changed how I move through the world entirely. I dress however makes me feel confident and authentic, whether I'm attending charity galas or grabbing coffee with friends. If someone judges me based on my appearance, that says everything about them and nothing about me. More importantly, I've learned to speak up when I see injustice happening, regardless of whether it affects me personally. I've become an advocate for better treatment of models and actors, working with Marcus to implement industry-wide changes that protect young talent from exploitation and abuse. The agency that was once Platinum Dreams is now called Rising Star Talent, and it's become known throughout the industry for treating every aspiring model with respect and dignity, regardless of their background or appearance. We've discovered incredible talent among people who might have been overlooked by agencies focused only on conventional beauty standards. That terrifying day taught me that real power isn't about having money or connections or the ability to humiliate others. Real power is about using whatever influence you have to lift other people up, to protect those who can't protect themselves, and to create positive change in the world around you. So that's my story about the day I was forced to strip in public by a modeling agency director who had no idea she was about to lose everything. It was humiliating and traumatic, but it also showed me the importance of never judging people based on appearances and always standing up for what's right. Have you ever been judged unfairly based on how you looked? Or maybe you've witnessed someone else being treated poorly because of their appearance. Share your story in the comments below because I read every single one and respond to as many as I can. If this story inspired you or made you think differently about treating others with respect, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more real-life stories that will challenge how you see the world. Remember, you never know who you're talking to or what someone might be going through, so always choose kindness and respect. I'm Isabella, and I'll see you in the next story that proves the truth really is stranger than fiction. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.